Hi everyone, JJIR here, and in this video we're going to see a little bit about Vim, the text editor, which I use for programming because of its universality, meaning I'm able to open it up in any device. I can use iPhone, iPads, Android phones, Samsung, Chromebooks, Windows, Mac, and see the exact same thing and work in the exact same way. And for me, that's a major advantage over having extra options that sometimes you find in other IDEs or text editors. So, for me, because of its importance in being able to do anything I need to do anywhere, I'm going to show the basics of it here using the Google Cloud Platform, which is basically the possibility for me to jump into a VM instance with Mosh or SSH on any device. And that's why the Vim editor becomes much more important, because going through and going into these VM instances, I'm able to work more efficiently. So, for example, here, I can have a VM instance that's very powerful, that can have many CPUs and a lot of RAM. And even though the device I'm using is very weak, as long as I have an adequate Wi-Fi connection, the way I'm working becomes extremely fast and efficient because I'm not dependent upon the device I'm using. So for me, that's extremely important. And like I mentioned before, Vim is the same no matter where you are. So it makes no difference what device you're using. It'll look the same, it will act the same, and you can work the same. So for me, that universality means I don't have to relearn different things or different options in different programs or different applications. So for me, that's a major advantage and allows me to work more efficiently. So Vim does take more time to learn. There's nothing graphical about it. You don't use a mouse. You have to use the keyboard the whole time. So you have to learn new ways of moving around. It does take muscle memory. You do have to learn a lot more key combinations. But in the end, even though it will make you slower at the beginning, it does allow you to work more efficiently and faster in the long term, because of the fact that everything is directed towards the keyboard and you're not moving your hands around to and losing time and moving the mouse around. So what we're going to do here is we're going to see how Vim is related to the Google Cloud Platform, which allows me to jump into a VM instance by Mosh for SSH. And then I'll just explain a little bit of the options or the key combinations that I have in Vim right now, so that you guys can take advantage of them and hopefully be able to start off with Vim as well and see the advantages like I have seen them. So here, it's very important that you see the last video I have on a Google Cloud Platform. I showed in the previous video how to start a VM instance here for free, and it's important that you see it before you jump into this, otherwise you might get a little lost on what we're doing here. So either way, to start off, we're just going to jump into our VM instance that we created previously. We're just going to jump into our Compute Engine section here. Yeah, remember that this is under console.cloud.google.com, and then you create under Compute Engine the VM instance here. As I mentioned before, I'm using Debian because that's what Google is promoting right now as a more secure version of Linux, and it's because it's on the Chromebook. So whatever I do here in the VM instance, I can somewhat imitate with the VM machine that Google is now adding to Chromebooks from version 69. 69 is where you can actually start using Linux on Chromebooks, and I'll have a video on that as well. But for now, that's why we're using Debian. There's other options, but we're going to stick with this for now. So here, I'm actually on a Chromebook, and I'm jumping into the Google Cloud Platform. We're going to SSH into the VM instance that we have. This is the free version, as I mentioned before. We're going to show this as a tab. Hop over here and stick it next to the console, and we're going to let that jump in there. While we're letting it do that, we're going to open up another tab here, and we're going to open up what I mentioned before in other videos under GitHub here, slash Jason Juritich slash JJ dash gas. Gas, remember, is Google Apps Scripts abbreviated. And here we're going to go into the one that I have here, which is called Setup Debian. Setup Debian, as we mentioned in the previous video, this will allow you to install everything that we're going to use in other videos. And below that, we have the Vim configuration. So all we need to do here is just grab this for now. And we're going to click on Control C so we can have that. And then we're going to go back here to our terminal, and we're going to clear this up. And now, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into our very first Vim document. So what you need to do at the very beginning to set up Vim is you need to create a document with Vim that configures Vim. And you don't need sudo for this, and you can remain in your home directory. So we're just going to put vim and then dot vimrc, which it tells Vim that we're going to set up the configuration document for Vim for all of our wonderful keystrokes that we want to use in other documents. So all we have to do now is click on enter here. It's going to open up the Vim doc. That's going to be our configuration doc. And for this, another advantage that I like about the SSH here in Google Cloud Platform is that you can use a couple keystrokes that in other terminals are not possible to use. For example, typically in other SSH terminals, you can't use Control V. Here, Google offers the exception that you can use it. That's not always the case, but at least here you can. So to start off Vim, you're always going to click on I or A. I is insert here. You can also use the letter A, but to start off, usually you just click on I. So here we're going to click on I, and then we're going to click on Control V so we can paste our configuration text inside this document. After we're done with that, typically in Vim, although we're going to change it later on, we just press Escape, so we jump out of Insert, and then there's various ways of closing a document, but one of the ways is clicking on Shift and ZZ, and that closes up the document. Again, there's various ways of doing this. I just found that Shift ZZ was the fastest and the easiest for me. So after we do that, we can actually click on the arrow going up, so we can go to the previous command that we had in the terminal, and we're going to click on Enter here. And then that's going to offer us this as reset, so to speak, so that we can install plugins, which are these guys here. We need to close the Vim document and open it up again. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click on colon. Colon is something that you use in Vim often so that you can program or install certain things. Right now I'm in Spanish keyboard, so I have to switch it actually, otherwise it doesn't work. So here we're going to click on the colon, and then for this we're going to do plugin install. We're going to click on that. Install, the I is uppercase there. And when we do that, we click on enter, and then it's going to go through and install these. Now, I already had these installed, but it doesn't make a difference. It'll just run through little by little to install these. So that's why it's so important that you follow the previous thing, because in this installation that we did in Debian, we actually installed Vundle, which is down here, which is our plugin setup program, so to speak, so that we can add certain things to Vim, so that we can add extra options to Vim. Essentially, Vim in of itself sometimes is lacking certain things, so there's various programs you can add plugins to Vim. Vundle is the one I just started off with. Again, I'm not an expert in this at all, but this is the one that I found online that was the easiest to set up and install. So here we have our plugins that were installed. They're going to go through one by one. There's like little arrows here. They're going to come out when you start installing those. And once that's done, then we can click on Q. Q is going to close that part there. And then typically what's going to happen is you're going to have to close it up again so that the any type of plugin that was set up can actually activate itself. So we just make sure we click on escape to make sure there's nothing there, and then Shift ZZ. That does that, and then arrow up again. And there's another thing here that sometimes when you're adding some of the plugins and you put the text in, the second time you open it up, there's an error that comes out and says, hey, you don't have this installed. You don't have to worry about it. You just jump in anyway. It says, do you want to continue? You press enter, and then you jump back in. So basically what happens is that the second time around when you open it up, the plugin is not installed, so the color scheme Molokai it doesn't activate itself because of the fact that the plugin is still not there. So when you do that and you do the colon plugin install, and then the color scheme plugin here is installed, and then the third time around it doesn't come out because of the fact that it's already installed. So basically here, the essential that you need to understand is that the first lines here from 1 to 17 are extremely important, and you just leave them exactly as they are. And these three first lines you always have to put in, and then here you have like a sandwich thing where you have a call Vundle begin, call Vundle end, and then you put all the plugins in the middle there. The rest of this you can put in the order you want, and any way you want down below. But this first part's always something you have to put in no matter what. So you put the file type off, you set the where the bundle plugins are going to be, etc., etc., and you have stuff down here that you're going to add. Now, some of this stuff I have to be honest with you, some things I understand, some things I don't, but I had found various things online that allowed me to work more efficiently within Vim. Some things were essential to me that if I didn't have them, I wasn't going to be able to work in Vim, and some of the things were just a couple extra things. For example, a key right here below, we have autosave. For example, autosave was something that, like Google Docs saves everything automatically. Autosave for me was essential. If I didn't have autosave, I wasn't going to be able to work here. So we have an autosave plugin, and then we have autosave elements here. And when you go into the plugins, most of these plugins are on, they're within GitHub, so they'll explain to you what they do and how they work, et cetera, et cetera. So here, the autosave, the configuration it gave me to save everything was this one here, was equal to 1. And then you have another thing, which is like the browser split and the window size and things like that I found online that I stuck here. That this was from a few months ago, so I really don't remember exactly what it's doing, but it allowed me to make everything look nice in regards to what I was doing within Vim. So later on, you can look at that. Here, a quick fix is based on something up here, which is in relationship to TypeScript. And we need TypeScript for using Google Apps Scripts in Vim, which took me a while to figure out. But now I can finally edit Google Apps Scripts in Vim in a very fluent manner. So the quick fix, basically, it just here, what I'm doing is blocking all the errors, because each time I was typing, tons of errors would come up because and TypeScript doesn't really understand exactly that I'm doing Google Apps Script. So I turned it off, but if you turn this to 0, then you're able to see the errors that come out when you're typing TypeScript, which is pretty awesome as well. So this combination helps you to do JavaScript and TypeScript and Google Apps Script and things like that. So again, there's a couple of details that later on I'll have to make another video on because I don't remember exactly what they do, but it at least helps you to be able to program Google Apps Script in Vim, which is what my goal was, and it works out very, very well. And then, like I said, you have the color schemes, and the color schemes here, there's a website that they offer so that you can go in and start looking at certain color schemes. It doesn't have a ton. You have to learn how to install other color schemes, which I haven't gotten to yet. But at least this one, which is actually the first one that they offer, is for me good enough. I think the color scheme was fine. It's not like I like the red or the pink here too much, but the color scheme right now is sufficient to where I can work and I don't feel bad when I'm doing it. So, but you can change this to other things. And like I said, if you go to their GitHub page, they'll offer you some other things that you can use, and you just sort of follow the links until you find something that you like. So those are basically the things here that help you to configure a little bit more of the plugins that you've installed. And then here, basically, we have the famous key mapping that's in Vim. Basically, you have to configure how you want things to be set up. So, for example, the famous one of escape. Escape for me is a little too far away. I don't like extending my pinky finger all the way over to escape each time I want to escape. So what I did here is that basically I changed escape into tapping TT twice here, as you can see. And that allows me to escape when I'm editing something. And you have other things here. The file manager comes out with Shift W, things like that, to close the document I'm working on. I have changed it to Shift Q. So certain things, and then moving myself up and down the document, which obviously because you have no mouse, I changed it to where it was much easier, and using Shift E and Shift R. And so that goes up and down the document as well, which I'll show you right now. But there's certain things that I just used to make sure it was easier for me to work on. And another thing here is on Chromebooks, given the fact Chromebooks also has a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts, sometimes they would clash with the keyboard shortcuts that originally that Vim had. So that's an example up here, which we have the Control W, which obviously does something in Chrome. So I had to change this to Control H, and that allowed me to do certain things that before I couldn't do. So, and as well for suggestions, when I'm typing and I'm working on Google Apps Scripts, I'm actually able to be to find suggestions for things to finish off what I'm writing, and that one has been changed to double F. So all these types of things I've remapped, and it's just a matter of investigating and seeing how you can remap certain things. But there's various things here that you can already take advantage of. So that's why I have this set up here, and that's allowed me to work much better than before in this case. So in relationship to some of these things, first of all, we have our file manager. The file manager I use by opening Shift and then W. It opens up the file manager here. And in another video, I'm going to show you how to add Google Drive here. So you can actually are able to open up Google Drive within this file manager and be able to see what you have there in relationship to documents, and then copy and paste documents, which we can also see in another video. So here you have your file manager within the VM instance, which you can also see what's in each folder, for example. Just by clicking on enter, it opens it up and you're able to do that. And then Control H, right now I have to go back and forth from the file manager to the document. So things like that have worked out very well for me. Some very interesting thing here, you can't use a Shift Q to close the file manager here, so you have to click on Shift ZZ, and that closes up the file manager again. So things like that work out fairly well. And then to close off our video here, I'll just show you a couple of things that I've been doing with the text editor in relationship to these types of keyboard shortcuts, so you can see how they work. So what we're going to do right now is we will close this up. Here I'll use Shift Q. Don't need to worry about that. And then we can open up a Vim test, and then we'll put TS here. Now TS is TypeScript, and normally you'd use JavaScript, but unfortunately things for Google Apps Script don't come out when you use JavaScript or GS or things like that. So unfortunately here, from what I found, is that you have to go into use documents with TS. But the advantage here is that when you push and pull from Google Apps Script online, the TS actually gets transformed into Google Apps Script very easily. And they explain that in their own websites, explaining how to use Google Apps Script when you're using a VM instance. So here you just use test TS. We're going to click on enter here. And there's a little element down here. It says vimproc wasn't fully installed. So what happens is that we have to go back here and actually have that down here. And it says install vimproc. So we're going to click on this, grab this. I don't exactly remember what vimproc does. I'll have to explain that in our video, but it has to deal with something with TypeScript and JavaScript. So here what we're going to do is we're going to click on Shift Q, because we don't need that. And we're just going to add this line here again in the home directory. And we're going to click on enter so that I can finish adding vimproc here to our list. Now that's done. We can go up with our up arrow and go back in here. And as you can see, now the error of vimproc is gone. So here we're in our little document here that we want to use. And again, we have to click on I or A to start editing. And then I can go here and click on, for example, function. Here, it changes color. I go and put my parentheses down there, put in my brackets, go over here, and then go into spreadsheet, app. And then as I click on double F, then all of the wonderful options I have open up. And here we have the very same ones that we find in Google Apps Script, which is open by ID, open by URL. And this is totally awesome because now we can edit Google Apps Script here in our Vim document. So I can click on one of these and then click on enter. You do have to use arrows. So you're not going to be able to use the J and the K are to go up and down. And not in insert mode. Insert mode, you just use the arrows. But usually you just click on, then in this case, TT. And then the J goes down. The K goes up. The L, let's go here, for example. Let's see here. H goes to the left and L goes to the right. And when you press put numbers next to those, it'll go down or up, left and right in accordance with that. So if I go to J, it goes down 2 lines. And if I go to L, it goes, well, it can't go anywhere here because there's nothing. But if I go to K, it's going to go up 2 lines. So as long as you have text, you can move around. If you don't, it's not going to go anywhere. But anyhow, so use the J, K, L, H combinations to move yourself around when you're not in insert mode. And then when you are in insert mode, you just have to use the arrows basically to move yourself around. But normally when people move around in a document that's really big, you just go, for example, let's say I need to go up or down 100 lines. You put 100 and then J, and it goes down 100 lines. And if you go 100K, it goes up 100 lines, et cetera, et cetera. So nothing complicated there, but it allows you to move around in a simple manner. And the other thing that's nice here is that you have cut and paste. So for example, if I go and click on 0, it brings me to the first part of the line. If I click on Shift and 4, it goes down to the end of the line. Going back to 0 brings me here. And then if I click on V or Shift V grabs the whole line. Or if I click on just V, it goes into visual mode, and that allows me to select text. Here I'm going letter by letter using the L that goes to the right. And then what I can do is I can click on Y, and what Y does is it basically copies the text, basically. So if I go to the end of the line here and then go into A, which is an insert next to what you put in, click on Enter, go TT, and then click on P, which is paste, and it brings out the text that I had here. So it basically allows you to do what you need to do in a simple manner. And then if I go to 0 key here and then click on V again, select the text here, and then click on D, it's going to delete it, D for delete. So, and the same thing works that way. So if you click on a whole bunch of text there, if you select a whole bunch of lines and click on D, it just deletes all of them. So it's very simple, but it allows you to work, and that's what I like about this. And if so far, you do have to learn, there's muscle memory involved, but in the end, it allows you to work in an adequate manner. So for example, here, if I go OP and FF, it's going to just grab the last, the ones that end or begin with open or OP. So elements like this help tremendously just to be able to work anywhere you want. And another advantage here is that obviously we're talking about VM instances, but in another video, you're going to see how if you have your Chromebook already set up to 69, you can actually set up Linux there and then download into the VM instance on your Chromebook without using internet, and you can do the exact same things. You don't have to be connected. Here I'm connected to the internet because I'm using a VM instance in Google Cloud Platform. But once you set up Linux on your Chromebook, then you can pull from Google Apps Script the document you're working on, work on it offline, and then when you're connected again, you can push it up, and then it will be synchronized to what you have online in Google Apps Script. So all of that's really cool and allows you to work very efficiently when you're doing things with Google Apps Script. So it will set up, we'll have another video, a few other videos in relationship to this. I'll explain a little bit more how I'm setting things up here with Google Apps Script. I'll explain how to set up Linux on your Chromebook and things like that. But it was important that you guys could see how you could use Vim here in your VM instance and why I'm using it. And hopefully this will help others as well to work with Vim in the future. Again, I'm not an expert on this, and I do know you can program basically almost everything. JavaScript is one of the easier things to use. I dedicate myself just to JavaScript in this case. But there's other languages that you can easily use in Vim to program them. It takes investigating, but there are debugging elements, plugins that help you to debug basically almost any programming language. So you just have to find them and then install them and then set up Vim so that you can actually work in a very precise manner with the language you're using here in Vim, and it actually works very, very well. It just takes time to learn the keyboard shortcuts, muscle memory that you develop, and finding all the plugins that you need to be able to debug what you're working on. So as long as you do that, you should be just fine. So hopefully this video helped, and if it did, please give a thumbs up. And if you have any questions or doubts, please put them in the comments below the video so I can start going over